Welcome, Scorpio, to your Gemini season 1 month forecast for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon across the 20th or 21st of May, depending on where you live. The sun arrives in Gemini after an 11-month absence. Gemini is a sparkling energy around quick communication, but we can talk about that generally. But what will this mean for you personally, Scorpio? On the screen is your event chart, the exact moment the sun arrives, and all the other planetary influences, which will provide a backdrop for the next month. I'm going to unpack all of this for you, also tell you about two upcoming influences, and by the end of the video, you'll have a clear understanding of what's in store in terms of energy, work, relationships, and finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. Gemini is the third zodiac sign. It's an air sign, so about those fast exchanges, communication, but it's also mutable, so very flexible. Its ruler is Mercury, and in mythology, Mercury is the messenger, the go-between between the gods above and us mortals on planet Earth. But as much as Gemini energy can be very effervescent, bubbly, curious, mischievous, what will it mean for you? Because it's in the eighth house for you, Scorpio, which ironically has an echo of Scorpionic energy, because the eighth house can be about transformation in a more psychological way, but it can also be about where we're most invested in a positive manner, but it can also be where we want to leave something which is not working for us that we have put our heart and soul into. Also, in terms of the more practical dimension, the eighth house can be about shared, long-term, and investment and business finance. But this year, as the sun returns to Gemini, he's met by Uranus for the first time in 78 years. So it's not since 1948. They come into an exact conjunction, a cazimi, on the day after the sun's arrival, and that brings a completely different dimension to bear. But also Mercury, the ruler of the sign, is in residence too, forging two links, one to your modern ruler of Pluto, but also another to the planet of structure, Saturn. So that's the kind of backdrop. But let's just be mindful of the planet which is most northerly in the chart, but it's actually a luminary, it's the moon. So your emotions could be quite close to the surface over the next month, which is intriguing because the sign of Gemini is very much about that airy detachment. I think that might be a little difficult to achieve, particularly as the moon is clashing around about 3 degrees with your traditional ruler of Mars. So that's in the part of your chart now to do with relationships. But the eighth house can be about relationships, but where they're much more intense. So Mars there can be good if you want to be more go-getting in terms of connecting with someone. Also good for setting your boundaries more firmly. And also, if you're in an existing relationship, getting that spur to keep it alive and bright. And Mars is actually in a delightful link to Venus in your ninth house. So, if you are wanting to re-engender that initial magnetic connection you had to someone when you first met, one of the great ways to do that over the next month will be to travel. And if that moves the moment, which could be, pardon me, Uranus on the sun, that could really inject a much greater sense of spice and newness into proceedings. But what about if you're not enjoying a relationship so much? Well, certainly Mars is asking you to be bold about your needs, but I feel that Venus is linked to Neptune will need some care. Maybe is that Venus for you is a truth seeker in that context. And whilst Mars can see you being firmer about what doesn't or shouldn't be done in the tie, Venus's square with Neptune can create a lot of disorientation and confusion. And this ninth house energy can be about a need for freedom. In a positive way, it could be a need for new experiences and travel, which could reinvigorate that connection, that deep connection. But if something isn't working where you have really been devoted, Uranus and the Sun together could give you the desire for separation, because Uranus can be about freedom and independence. It is the seeker of higher truths. The eighth house is your natural talent for getting beneath the surface. Now, Gemini can be a little bit flighty. It can be a little bit frivolous. But I think for you, you're going to use its energies of how you think and how you uh, research, or how you express yourself, quite a lot of depth. And you can be very powerful in expressing those ideas. So if you've got a brilliant business idea that's really starting to take shape in your mind, the way you get it across could be very compelling indeed. So we also have the Sun move forwards by the second, third day of its visit and comes into a sextile with Neptune. If you are wanting to bring a bit more imagination to how you use your long-term resources, that could work well for you. Neptune in that sixth house is also making you mindful, I feel, of the spiritual dimension, but in a practical way, if that makes sense. But let's just say there is some kind of shared resources, and each of you have a different view of that. I think by the early part of June, as Venus and Jupiter come together in a conjunction, it could be a time when you might have to come to some kind of agreement if you are wanting to diverge from one another. But you could do so gracefully if you choose to, being a sign which is very connected to how you frame by frame observe the emotional dimension. It's what makes you intense, and it's what makes people sometimes struggle with Scorpionic energy. I got lots of Scorpio, and but actually you shouldn't stop being yourself, because Uranus is very much the revealer. The eighth house is the revealer. The sign of Gemini is just the conversation. It's just using its air energy to think things through or express things, but you can still use your deep conviction. Now, I mentioned about Mercury and Pluto and Mercury and Saturn. So Mercury is in a very penetrative link to Pluto. So if you were talking about property finance, for example, you could scrutinize the numbers with aplomb. If you are one to squeeze more from your resources and perhaps try some fresh approaches, Uranus, uh, the link between Mercury to Saturn suggests you could do so skillfully too. So the square to the moon just suggests if there's something that is causing a tension point, I perhaps wouldn't try to push it too quickly, because as Venus moves forwards and comes into conjunction with Jupiter, I think a better atmosphere can prevail through the start of the second week of June. We also have a square between the moon and Chiron. So if there is something that you feel that someone's not being very conscientious about, as far as the domestic load, it could be around a colleague. That can feel quite wounding if you're the one who always seems to feel that you have to carry the load. But I think give this particular transit a little bit of time. There could be a temptation to be reactive with Uranus in the mix, and particularly around the financial dimension. But equally, that electric energy could draw someone to you. And if you're lucky enough to meet someone that you align to in terms of your values, or you enjoy traveling with, or just talking into the small hours about different philosophies, it could be a really important relationship. I'm going to summarize those four areas of energy, work, relationships, and finances next, Scorpio. But if you've yet to order your personal horoscopes, I've slashed the price. It's now three for the price of one. And you'll get your life roadmap report, which will help you to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far. But you also get your draconic soul karmic analysis. Now, if your North Node in natal is late in Pisces or early in Aries, you won't see a huge difference. But if it's not, the draconic chart can be very different. And it helps us to look at ourselves and perhaps our karmic journey in a more profound way. Please see the link below for more. And if you've yet to watch your Uranus 78-year solar return Kazemi video, that's on the screen. Your Mars in Taurus video, your traditional ruler 6-week forecast, that's on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, that would be an absolute pleasure. Please see the testimonials below. And if you'd like to take advantage of your free daily written horoscope fired to your device each morning, you can do so below as well. So as far as your energy is concerned, you do still have Saturn and Neptune, as you will, in the case of Neptune for some years, Saturn for the next 2 years in your sixth house, which means taking care of the practical side of your well-being, getting the right amount of sleep, rest, exercise, looking at your nutrition, all those things. When it comes to your professional situation, if you're working in a business environment, I think you can do very well if you're open to new technologies and approaches. If you're working in a more practical environment where you've been pretty used to doing things in a certain way, you may feel or find that this Gemini season brings in more suggestions to do things differently, perhaps including technology, and that could feel a bit stressful. The Sun moves forwards by the 26th and T-squares the North Node and the South Node. And I think as far as your love life is concerned, that's going to be a testing point, whether you're all in or perhaps needing to get all out. But if you are enjoying a relationship, changing up where you spend time together is going to be very enjoyable indeed. And if you're traveling somewhere and you're single, you could have a brief but very powerful connection to someone. Doesn't have to be brief, but that Uranian energy, it may just be so. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure being with you and look forward to seeing you again soon.